This business model proved not to be viable in the end.
Jan Henric Buettner co-founded Freestyle Chess with Magnus Carlsen. Now he's running for president of FIDE.
I was able to raise $27.5 million just for the freestyle portion. I will be definitely able to raise much more money for the general chess market if this is run properly.
We discuss why freestyle changed its business model, whether Jan's remaining stake creates a conflict of interest, FIDE's finances, and other hot topics.
See a scenario where we just have 50 more votes. I can also see a scenario where we have 100 and more votes.
Can Jan's team win the election, and how are they planning to do it? Watch this episode to find out.
A lot of stuff going on right now that is not really in the interest of transparency and of a fair election.
Jan, thanks so much for agreeing to record this podcast. I'm thrilled about it, and I definitely will be asking lots of questions about your presidential program and stuff like that. But first of all, can you please describe the moment when you decided to run for the FIDE President title?
Yes, I very well remember that. It was in Monaco during the Formula One race where I had Javokhir, Sindarov and Bibisara from your country invited. And showed them around. And then the idea came up within our discussion. And first of all, I was laughing it off a little bit because I thought that was definitely not my plan. But after some consideration, I said, why not? And since then, I'm in the race.
But what was the motivation? So I remember you repeatedly were saying that you're just a businessman. You got into chess. Yes, you came up with the freestyle project idea, but this was not obvious that you should run for the presidency for outsiders, at least.
Absolutely. Not even for me, not for the most insider. I would consider myself the most insider to my own stuff. So I didn't even see that coming. No, the thing is basically that I actually was on the way out of the chess world again because I handed over the freestyle company to somebody else. And, I was basically done with the project. And the final moment was basically just this a visit to Formula One, with Javokhir and Bibisara and showing them where this can all go with their stardom, similar like Formula One drivers and so on. And then they said, please don't leave the chess world. You did so great things and you're the best thing that ever happened to chess, in terms of business wise and so on. You raised all this money and you put all these great tournaments. Can't you do something like that with FIDE? Why don't you run for president? And at this, I was not even remotely considering it. And so I was really laughing about it. Said, that's really funny idea. But I've never been in any political situation where I actually looked for being elected by somebody. I always built up my own companies, my own stuff. And I was basically more responsible for explaining myself to investors and other people in the market, but not having to collect votes from people. So, but especially this idea to say, okay, because I'm a businessman and the way FIDE has been run so far is not really as a business. And so I said, why don't I apply the rules of business, what I have learned in my 40 years of business life. I'm 62 years old now, so I'm very experienced in all kinds of industries. I always apply the same logical rules to whatever I do. If it's building up cell phone systems or online services or venture capital funds or hotel operations or whatever, I always apply, common sense to it. And so I thought, if I was able to raise $27.5 million just for the freestyle portion, I will be definitely able to raise much more money for the general chess market if this is run properly. And so I thought it's a great challenge and a great goal to have. It's also a sprint. It's a short-term project. It's a 90-day project. So I thought, why not giving it a chance and putting myself up into the race. And since then, it's been executing, and I'm meeting individually with all federations, all presidents, all delegates of all countries, which also is a great learning experience for me because I learn a lot about these countries. About a third of them I have visited. 2/3 of them I've not visited, including Kazakhstan, I must say. So it's great to learn, if only briefly, like for these 30 to 60 minute conversations that I'm having with people, either individually, personally, or over the video conference or telephone call, to make myself familiar with the country and their specific needs, especially in the chess market, getting to know great people that are very much dedicated to chess and would very much like this also to be run professionally and having a possibility to do their own planning for business purposes and not being reliant like on people coming around every 4 years and promising whatever and then disappearing again. So really putting it on a solid grounds. And that's a challenge that I would be happy to do if I was giving the votes on September, end of September next month.
I see. Thank you for sharing the details. Guys, every time I find out a chess player who's passionate about chess hasn't yet tried chessreps.com, I'm genuinely surprised because this is right now, in my opinion, the best value for money that you can get in chess online education. And the platform has recently had a huge update. You see those names? You see this name? Andrei Yesipenko, candidates participant. Mitrapka Guha, also very strong Indian grandmaster. You see, the couple of my courses are here. Also, if you scroll down, GM, FM, GM, IM, FM, lots of GM courses, lots of IM courses, and lots of openings. You can study them all, and you don't have to pay huge amounts of money for every course. You can just purchase a modest subscription. Very, very good value for money. I personally believe they are significantly underpriced. So this huge update has added courses by titled players to the platform. You can see, for example, Andrei Sipenko's Rui Lopez. I've just started learning it because I've recently had my wedding. You can congratulate me in the comments. And I've just started learning it. You can actually choose the level that you want to do the course in. So in this course, I've already chosen the titled player level. So the lines will be more complicated. So there will be longer and I will have to learn something. I think Andrei suggests going d4 here, which is, and now castles. Yeah, and now e5. And now probably knight d4. This is the first line that I studied and I'm trying to recollect it. I think c3 to drop back to c2 now, yes. And now knight a3. So this is the line that I've learned. I've just taken one look at it, but already I think I'm confident in it. Okay, but nevertheless, so the lines here are longer. But if we go back, okay, let's take a look at another course. Let's take a look at the, let's say, fried liver attack. I click on the course and you see I can choose essentials. If you're an amateur player, you're good to go with essentials. Or full mastery if you want more lines, deeper lines to play on higher level. So in case of Yesipenko's course, there were 3 levels that you got to choose from. So guys, I really recommend you try this website. You can try it for free. The subscription is not expensive at all. I was surprised. And yeah, this is an amazing site. You can practice your openings. You can drill them against the clock. You can train them against bots. You can solve puzzles in your openings. Lots of functions. So click the link in the description to try Chessreps. And thanks to Chessreps for sponsoring this podcast. Let me ask a follow-up question, because you mentioned that this is like a short sprint, as you said. I presume this is about the campaign, right? That is going on right now.
Exactly.
But the presidency itself is not a short sprint. It's
of course. No,
4 years.
Yes,
that's a lot.
No, I just mean the election period. This is a very tough period, as you can imagine. Traveling around the world, meeting all kinds of people. Especially engaging on an individual level with everybody. This is surely a sprint, like of 90 days. Of course, once the presidency is won, that's, at least a 4-year, if not an 8-year commitment, which I'm happy to engage into. And being able to really put my own fingerprints and my shape around this organization would be a great opportunity that I would be happy to take on.
Yes, yes, I see. So let me rephrase. So I understand. Yes, of course, this is a sprint. What follows next, if you win, is definitely not a sprint. It's a long and probably tedious job, because FIDE is a huge bureaucratic organization that requires lots and lots of work to make it better, probably. And I was wondering what you think about it, because I remember you said in some interviews that you are like almost finished with chess, like the freestyle project. You enjoyed it. You dedicated some energy to it, but you do not intend to spend like the rest of your life in chess. And then you run for the presidency. So I want you to give clarification about that. What changed exactly? Just that the fact that Sindarov and Bibisara were appreciative of your candidacy, or something else maybe?
No, it's a totally different task, having a company, building a startup company built around freestyle and celebrity players, than having the opportunity to really shape a complete worldwide organization. It's a complete different task. And, of course it has to do with chess, but in the end, it also has to do with a lot of, statesmanship, talking eye to eye to states leaders, to business leaders, and everything that I've done in my life so far as well. So it's similar, like when I say, for example, with Weissenhaus, my property, there also I have been working on setting it up like as the land, like for 7 years. And then, totally different task, same project, but, setting up a hotel operation there. And after that, having some other stuff. So there's always different shades of things. And I never said that I would leave kind of the chess completely behind. I would always have, played and be involved with that. But I wanted this task of setting up this company, that was not supposed to be my task of my 60s, because there are other people that are more motivated to do that in the future. And I think I have at least done my part there to basically show how chess can be presented, all the way to the point that people even identify me as the one who always wanted to do freestyle in my life, but the fact is that this was a Magnus Carlsen idea. I didn't even know what Fischer Random 960 was 3 years ago. So that's something that I did on behalf of Magnus Carlsen and like the superstars of chess. And now I'm trying to do totally different things for the general chess player all around the world and in every country. Being responsible for putting the FIDE organization onto solid grounds. And I think that's a totally different task and a very exciting one from my point of view.
Okay, thanks for sharing that. You mentioned that you already transferred the management of Freestyle Chess to some other person. Is this like public information? Because it's the first time I'm hearing this. Can you share this?
His name is Dr. Andreas Walker. He is a seasoned media executive. He has set up the pay TV channel in Germany. Like long ago, he has done esports. So that's on a different matter. But I found finally somebody who has a lot of experience in this field and a lot of appetite and interest to put this forward. Also, people involved in the project now are, for example, the trainer of Javokhir, Roman Vidonyak, who was, we're gonna do a lot of great stuff around learning software, subscription business. So it's going to be quite a different animal than the traditional freestyle chess event organization. Events will still continue. Going to have the World Championships to continue. There's going to be a Freestyle Chess Masters League. But all these ideas now are not the ones being driven from my head and trying to, put into perspective and so on. These are ideas by other people, as I said, like Andreas or like Roman. And they are actually right now having new investors, partners that are really interested to put this to the market. And then there will be also like a formal press release, maybe in a few weeks or months, how this is going to be set up. But this is something that is separate from me. I'm still, like invested in the company, but more like a passive ownership investment and not as somebody who was actively shaping or running the business.
Okay, that's interesting. I'm looking forward to learning more about the project because, I've been following it from the get-go, and it's exciting to see where it leads. But this is not the topic of our today's discussion. But however, it is a little bit connected because, for example, you said that you still have some ownership in the project. And while preparing for this episode and for the next episodes with other presidential candidates, I've researched some of the FIDE laws and regulations. And there are some provisions about conflicts of interest. And you had to submit, probably you already did you submit some form where you say what you need to do to avoid conflict of interest? Did you fill out that form already?
This is all part of the project. I think from my point of view, there is the least concern about conflict of interest if you look at the other candidates, what they are doing. So I think this participation in this small startup company, if it ever would create conflict of interest, if there would ever be a business dealing with FIDE and that organization, which is, at this point doesn't have, then of course that would be disclosed and it would be kind of above the board. But that's nothing that would be any conflict of interest that I see at this point.
But potentially, I think there could be conflict of interest because FIDE jointly with Freestyle Chess is running the 2027, for example, World Freestyle Championship, isn't it?
Yeah, it's correct. It's a FIDE tournament, which basically FIDE gets money from freestyle to name it FIDE World Championship. And that has been it from the past. If it's going to be like more of that, as I said, this is something that is going to be above board, but it's nothing that I'm even engaged in any discussion. So there's nothing. This, as I said, this venture is more looking at to creating learning software, doing subscription business, and is not the typical freestyle chess company that you saw in the past.
Okay, interesting. So about that electoral form that required you to explain how you would eliminate your conflicts, what exactly did you say in it? If it's not secret information, of course.
Well, there's just a form. There's no specific requirements to put all the kind of details. Just you disclose what you have, and that's what we did.
Okay, so your answer basically is that you are not running that company, and you don't see any potential conflicts, significant conflicts at least, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I also got another question, by the way, from Kostya Kavutsky. Shout out to Kostya. On Twitter, when I announced that you would be one of my guests, Kostya, being an international master and a fellow content creator, asked a question that I find very, very interesting as well. So I want to ask it. He says that it seems that freestyle has fallen through on its promise for a quote sustainable tour with multiple events per year, similar to the ATP, PGA, etc. So Kostya's question is, in your view, what was the reason for the lack of success, and what do you hope to do differently with FIDE?
Well, this is like, again, something that is totally disconnected. You know, there's one question about how did freestyle develop and what is the goal of this company now. And the other thing is, what am I doing with FIDE, which has nothing to do with the freestyle tour. But, giving to that first one. So the freestyle, the company, as we set it up 2.5 years ago, was built around Magnus Carlsen. It was meant to be a tour with around Magnus Carlsen's idea of having a freestyle chess or Fischer random tournament series against the best players in the world. And it was meant to be an exclusive event, like where the top players, especially Magnus, are exclusively bound to it. And so that was obviously nothing that he wanted to follow through. So he wanted to do all kinds of other stuff in addition. So there was the competitive advantage, so to speak, of the tour being like a Magnus Carlsen exclusive event that went away. That, of course, created, of course, some interesting discussions with investors and people who wanted to kind of leverage on that, talking about, do you use brands for your personal use or for your league or whatever, all this kind of stuff. So this business model proved not to be viable in the end, because, if you do put something around one of the top players, then you have to basically have his full commitment. Like another example, there's another league in another sports called the Kings League, built around a soccer player called Gerard Piqué. I don't know if you know Gerard Piqué. He's one of the world's best defenders from Spain. So he created his own league. So it was a King's League, and so he basically is very much behind it. He's going around, talking to sponsors, investors, and so on. And that's nothing that we ever got Magnus to do. So he just wanted to play, and in the end, so it's like, but it's not enough, just to play something if you play other stuff as well. So that was something that we said, okay, it doesn't really work to build it around this person. So we then broadened the scope to include other top players. You remember also the big discussion about is it like a world championship, which was also one thing that was Magnus Carlsen request, about doing this. The other players didn't really want to follow through. It was also very much attached to me, although I personally didn't have any interest in if it's a world championship or not. So all of these things then led to us as a freestyle company at that point say, okay, what then? As we have established this league, which was really exciting and a lot of people love to play it, especially the young players love to play it, like Javokhir or Vincent or Nordjebek or Arjun or Hans, or, even also the older players like Levon or Fabi and of course Magnus, they all love to play it. So in the end said, okay, if it's just a tournament that's played, so then more than having a world championship once a year, is not, being possible to fund, if you don't have the exclusivity of one of the top players who basically say, okay, you can only watch me playing at these events and the sponsors have exclusive rights to this and this and this. If that's not possible, then you just basically do this. And this is why we have reduced, so to speak, the freestyle chess company to a one-time a year event, which is happening in my resort in Weißenhaus, which I heavily subsidize as well. So because like when you look at the Las Vegas event, this thing costs like $5 million to produce, right? Such a show in Las Vegas, or so you can't really do that without any exclusivity for brands, for the players. So it basically was reduced to this event company. So this is also the point where I said, okay, if and I didn't have an interest to really develop it further because, as I said, it can go on and on. You can create companies. I've created companies all my life. Like if you do an online company, first you start as a subscription service, like with AOL, then you have advertising with it, you have transactional costs. Now you have the whole AI stuff. It's like it never ends. A company is an evolving entity, like a human being that develops. So the development of that company is now in the hands of other people. This is why I said the focus now is basically on learning and subscription, which was something that was not possible while it was a Magnus Carlsen company. Because Magnus has this exclusive deal with chess.com, with all the subscription business and so on and so on. So now with this company not being built around Magnus Carlsen, but being like an independent venture with a totally new start, those people who are running it right now can think of all kinds of other business models which are much more lucrative than an event company when you don't have an exclusive access to the superstars. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So it's a different kind of company altogether now.
Yeah, actually, it's
it's
actually even a new company structure. Even it's a new corporation, so to speak. Like the old corporation has a minority share in the new corporation, but there's a completely new setup of a new organization with new shareholders and so on and so on. So this is why also I'm no longer like the main part of doing this,
Mm-hmm. Okay. By the way, what are your current relations with Magnus? Are you on good terms?
Yeah, we have always been on good terms. The thing is basically that, as I said, there's this expectation that has been created at the beginning, which was not followed through. And as I said from the beginning, you can't hold these top sports people accountable to whatever they do. Look at the soccer, right? So look at the soccer clubs. They try to do everything to kind of bind players to a certain club, right? So, but in the end, contracts are contracts, but whatever, if a player doesn't want to play for a club anymore, he just goes somewhere else, and then there's nothing you can do. So you can basically keep it on a personal level. And, when talk about Magnus, his preferences changed. When we started the whole thing, it was he didn't want to play over the board tournaments at all anymore. He was tired of World Championship and so on. He didn't want to do it anymore, and so I was basically asked to create a series where he would be happy to play over the board tournaments, and then that would be kind of an exclusive, access also, which was the selling point for the sponsors and everybody. When you only see Magnus at these events and not at other events. But then, obviously he developed again his appetite to do other tournaments and to go around and do this kind of stuff. What can you do? So he changed his mind, and so then the company has to adapt to whatever that is, but it's definitely not the business model on which you can have investors or sponsors, put a lot of money onto. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm asking about Magnus because obviously he is the biggest figure in the chess world, and getting him back into the championship cycle, not just the total chess championship cycle, but maybe to the classical World Chess Championship cycle, or maybe to the reformed World Chess Championship cycle, is a huge topic. One of your potential competitors, Kirsan Ilumzhinov, was trying to enter the race on the premise that he will bring Magnus back. He didn't enter the race in the end for some reasons known to him. but I wanted to ask you, because you seem to me to be the guy who could potentially bring Magnus back, and you have personal relations with him, you have business relations with him. You are both co-founders of Freestyle Chess. So I wanted to ask, first of all, when you decided to run, did you tell Magnus, and what was his reaction?
Yes, I told him. I mean, just his reaction was basically, okay, interesting. I know him pretty well. His main interests are basically playing chess, playing golf, spending time with his family. And he doesn't care too much about politics. He just doesn't want politics to be in his way. So I think he will seriously think about what it means if I'm elected. Otherwise it's just candidate. But also I'm not running on a specific promise of bringing Magnus back or all this kind of stuff, because what I have when I started I called it a listening tour, because I'm going around since 2 months, basically, and starting to listen to people and see what their concerns are. And the concerns of the people, the constituents who give their votes, the 203 federations, are, not at all going around, if Magnus plays or not. That's not one of the main concerns. The main concerns of the federations is how do we get the funding to basically do our development work, our school work, how to get enough chess boards, how to fund our travel to the Olympics, all this kind of around people, selling sausages over the weekend to raise money for a flight ticket for a player who goes to Olympics. So it's nice to have, and that's nothing that somebody would run on top. I mean, I would not, consider this as a serious topic that will win or lose an election, basically. But certainly, one of the things that I'm definitely running on, and this is also one of the topics, if you look at my program, is that I'm trying to create an organization that has the least frictions, with people, and also valuing players like Magnus, the top players, that giving them the right value, basically, that they deserve in the chess market, and doing everything we can to get him back into the circuit and in the official circuit, but also making the circuit really more transparent and more, seen for everybody to be justified, what is which tournament, because there are so many tournaments that you don't even know exactly what is really going on, how do you qualify and so on. So to set a new good structure, good terms, and I'm sure then also Magnus will, consider to come back. As I said, I have gotten to know him over the last years, and you never know what he's really thinking in the end. So we'll see, once this comes to this topic, we'd certainly put a proposal to him at some point, or talk to him about what would be needed for him to have a comeback also on the classical cycle. But as I said, this is not one of the main points that I'm running on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I understand, but definitely Magnus brings the views, brings potential sponsorships, so it's an important topic for any kind of candidates. That's why I will be asking this question to all of them. Actually, I'm very interested in your program, because while researching, I found out that you are currently on this listening tour, and that you are in the process of correct me if I'm wrong, if in the process of fine-tuning your program, and you just published some theses which are not the final program. Is that correct?
No, it is basically the summary of a program. So first of all, if you say the manifesto, which ultimately we'll put out, it's basically being detailed as we speak by Malcolm Payne, who, undoubtedly has the much deeper knowledge about the chess market and about the chess history and all the necessity of chess. So he's going to finalize that. It's going to be like a 15 to 20 page document. But, to be honest to everybody, I mean, who reads these 20 pages in the end, right? So this is why I put out a 3-page document in the beginning that is easy to read, to basically has the main bullet points. And so the final manifesto will be mainly kind of what we have done in general, more in detail, but also incorporating all the points that I'm learning over the period. On Malcolm and I are learning when we're speaking to the delegates, what are their needs and what are their necessities. And we are reshaping this as we speak. And so there will be a final manifesto, which is basically, ideally, it's going to be optimally structured so that it's easy to read, but it's going to be a much longer document. But you will not find a completely different document. It's going to be mainly like 80% comprised of what we have put out before. The main thesis, basically, which we're also publishing, of course, all the time, is that we want to put make FIDE into a real organization that has revenues, that has shareholders, like the 203 federations are the shareholders. They should be entitled to get 20% of the revenue of FIDE so that they can plan ahead, and they are not having to ask for money or beg for money like for certain projects, or like candidates running around and promising everything every 4 years, but having a sustainable income stream that they can count on, which they can also use then to go to their governments, because the governments, what also we have learned, is they want to see that they have a sustainable revenue stream, that they can basically get additional subsidies and help from the government. But if you have no predictability, you can't also go to the government and ask for additional money because you don't even have a general income stream. So that's our main thesis that we are running around, and basically giving the power back to the federations, that they can decide what they do with the money, if they want to buy chess sets or if they want to buy plane tickets, or what, it's all up to them. But in the end, it's basically we are creating more revenue. Also, of course, by leveraging not only Magnus, but also top players that are, the faces of chess, getting the sponsors into the chess world, the Western sponsors into the chess world that so far have hesitated to be on board. And the additional revenue being then shared amongst the federations.
Yeah, thanks for sharing these details. Actually, I'll definitely be reading the manifesto. I'm looking forward, because the devil lies in the details, as they say. And of course, I, as well as I think other chess fans, am interested in how exactly you want to grow the game, grow revenues. Maybe you can share at least some parts of this plan. For example, like currently the FIDE annual budget is around $20 million, something like that, a little bit more. And I assume that you already have in mind some ideas how to bring more sponsors, more revenue. So maybe you can share some of those.
Yeah. So this starts very much by interesting. There's a new number from you as well. So nobody really knows what the budget is. I'm hearing everything between like 9 million and 35 million, whatever. I have heard all the numbers. Now you said 20 million. So the first thing is there is no transparency. Nobody knows, right? And that's something that we're definitely going to change. We're going to make public all the revenues and all the costs. Everything is clear, where the money comes from, where it's going to. And so before I know what is there and what is kind of the history, I cannot even say what we do, better or more or whatever, because I don't even know what the basis of that is. So, but certainly we're going to address sponsors that are only interested to invest into chess if they have a transparent structure, if they know where the money is going to, where they have accountability. So the main thing is transparency and accountability, what we're putting in. And then once we have a clear overview of where we are standing, we can also set our goals from that basis where we're going.
Mm-hmm. Well, actually, I'm just checking right now. It is like, I'm not arguing with you. I believe that FIDE would definitely benefit from more transparency, but at least the budget is available online on the FIDE website. And the 2025 budget featured an income of 13 million, I think, euros. And for the 2026 budget, it is 18,853,000. So something like that. And yeah, I'll link it in the description for everyone interested. But yes, FIDE will definitely benefit from more transparency. So you are saying basically that you need to also dive deeper into all this to figure out how to do it best, right?
Absolutely. For whatever you do, you have to first start with the data that you can get and start from there and build your future on existing data that is reliable and that you know about. Yeah.
I want more details also on your vision on the future of chess, because obviously for most people you are seen as the person who is the ambassador, evangelist of freestyle chess. And probably those who don't know too much about your program believe that if you are elected the FIDE president, you will make freestyle the norm and make everyone play Fischer random, something like that. I understand that this is not the case, but I still want to get from you some maybe bullet points on how you see the future of classical chess, because even in our previous episode where we talked, you mentioned, and rightfully so, lots of problems with classical these days. What would you suggest? Like maybe not. I understand that the manifesto is coming, and Malcolm also is having a big influence on as being a chess enthusiast on how this will be. But probably you have some bullet points on what happens to classical chess.
Yeah, so very good. Again, your intro is very good. Saying, okay, I have the ambassador of freestyle chess, and so as I said, how did this develop? It's not that I grew up and like in my 62 years of life, I thought, the best thing that I could do is like do a freestyle chess tour. I had no idea about that. It was only when I met Magnus and he had this idea, he wanted to do this, that I basically got convinced myself. And then when I was convinced, I can be the ambassador of this idea. Similar, I can be the ambassador of classical chess or FIDE. When I run FIDE, I can, in a year from now, when I'm running this, you will not think that I have been a freestyle guy before, because I can be as much an evangelist and ambassador of classical chess when I'm responsible for such an organization of FIDE as I was for this particular program of freestyle chess. Now, in that regard, I consider the classical chess part, the crown jewel still of FIDE and of chess. So that should always be like the pinnacle and the best achievement that a chess player can ever do. So really building out on the World Championship and on all the classical chess. But, that not discounting like things like Blitz and Rapid and Freestyle and all these kinds of other sports. They are bringing new crowds, new interests. So it's not that one or the other, or like changing the chess world from one to the other, but adding and basically growing the chess all together by this method. That's my goal. And as you said, the specifics of exactly, what does it really mean in terms of the details, when people like you are interested in the details of everything, that is something where, the experience and the knowledge and all the stuff that Malcolm has done in his life play a big role. And I would not consider myself, as somebody who would take his personal views and ideas into now we have to implement this or this or this. I would basically respect everything that has been built up so far and trying to trajectory in the future, something encompassing and incorporating other stuff which is interesting that has developed over the past, online gaming, as I said, Blitz, Rapid, and also Freestyle, of course. But that's something that has all a great role together, and still being built around the classical chess, of course, being as I said, the crown jewel of chess, and will have to always play the major role of chess.
Okay, that's probably good news for fans of classical chess. Actually, I have another topic that is important, I think, not just to me, but to many other people, the Russia/Belarus issue. And I think your public statements and Malcolm's public statements are not the same as to this question. And I want to clarify this. What's your position on this? Because your running mate called Dvorkovich sanctions a victory for Ukraine and a blow to Russia. And when you were talking about politics, you called for political neutrality. And I want to understand, what's your position? Does Malcolm Pine speak for your ticket in this respect? And are you going to, in your opinion, should FIDE continue the suspension of Russian Federation? Should Russia play in the Chess Olympiad in Samarkand, for example? What's your position on that?
So first of all, Malcolm's position that you just quoted must be from earlier, because we have a joint position which is built around the neutrality, what I just said, so we seriously think, this is my personal view, and also Malcolm is on board with that FIDE should not be a political party, should not play a political role, should not be a judge of anything, should not, say what is right or wrong, but should definitely adhere to all of the international law, of the rules and all of the rulings of courts and so on. So we will make sure that FIDE obeys with all of the rules and so on. But we will not come out with like any different statements that you basically say, okay, now this is a change, another direction. We will not be instrumentalized. I've never been instrumentalized in my life for anything, and so I don't think that FIDE chess is a method that should fight political wars in the world. So this is why it's a very thin line. Of course, you want to make like everybody comfortable. You cannot make everybody comfortable at the same time, but at least you can say, we are as neutral as possible. And as you may know, I have been very good with Arkady Djokovic. I have not celebrated his, being sanctioned or whatever. If that's the case, I have to deal with this. But as I said, I have a lot of respect to Russian people, Russian players, and if it's possible to do that under rules, that definitely we look into that. So it's nothing that I would have, my motivation is not bringing any political views into FIDE that are different than the ones before, or that have any significant meaning on the political stage. Ideally, I think that FIDE should play no role at all in this, but also should not be against whatever just international law and international rules and court decisions have been done.
Yeah, I understand your position, but still, when you say that the CAS or the IOC should determine the policy on Russia and Belarus, they do not determine like everything, every question about flags. Should they play under neutral flag or like their flag, or shouldn't they play at all? Then like some other topics, there are lots of questions that are left to at the discretion of FIDE, it seems like currently. And there is this vacuum. I see that, I don't know, maybe current officials are like hesitating to do anything. It's still not known whether Russia will play, for example, at the Olympiad, if I'm not mistaken. So this is just a weird situation. And maybe I realize that you will follow the recommendations, but still, do you have any position on this at all?
Well, as I said, I'm not too much into the details at this point. It's also not my role to be in the details at this point. But when I'm in a position, when I'm elected, then I would definitely take a position. I have never shied away from any position if I make up my mind. And my position will always be in the interest of the players, regardless of nationality, and trying to stay as much away from politics as possible. So that's where I'm standing. So if it's possible to do something for the players and for the sports, without kind of taking a political stance, which is against any kind of ruling or court order or whatever, then we will do it. But what it really means, the specifics, as you say, even the people who are in charge right now are shying away from it. So I will definitely not take any position, on matters that are not on my table to decide. But once they are, I'm not shy in taking any position on that.
Okay. Last question. How optimistic are you about your chances currently, as we speak? This is the beginning of August, the 6th of August.
Yeah. The thing is, I'm a very optimistic person anyway. So, I would not go into this race if I would not optimistic and think I will win it. Do I know? Of course not. I have no idea. It's basically, the thing is, I want to make sure that it's a secret election, that there's a lot of stuff going on right now that is not really in the interest of transparency and of a fair election. But anyway, we'll playing along. I just published a letter today where I basically think that FIDE should be a neutral body also in elections, should not favor one candidate over the other, should not take personnel resources or financial resources or whatever for one candidate over the other. It should be a fair playing field. That's all fine. And when I talk to the delegates, I never ask for anybody's vote. I say, please vote for me. I say, this is my option. This is the option that I'm offering. I wanted to make sure that everybody has the opportunity to understand where I'm coming from, why I'm here, what I'm standing for, and what they would get if I'm elected. And if they decide not to elect another candidate, that's how democracy works. It's totally fine with me. So I just wanted to make sure that my voice is heard to all of the voters, so to speak, the 203 federations, that everybody knows what they can vote on, and that the vote itself is free and fair and secret, and nobody can be held accountable to anybody how he has voted for whatever reason, because it should be just the conscience of the decision. It should be everybody should have contact to all candidates and all programs and all information, and then make up their mind. And so that's basically where I, of course, when I'm dealing, I now spoke to about 120 from the 203 federations, and I had a very positive feedback always. But you never know, But with people, how do you know with people? They tell you it's great. I really love what you're doing. In the end, they don't vote for you, whatever. You don't even know who's voting for you or not. So I'm, I can see all kinds of scenarios. I can see a scenario where we just have 50 more votes. I can also see a scenario where we have 100 and more votes. It's basically everything is up in the open. We'll see. So I'm also very excited to see how this is going. It's only 7 more weeks, and then we have the result. So.
Yeah, I'm also very interested in how it will go. Looking forward. Thank you so much, Jan, for answering all those questions. Guys, don't forget to hit the like button and write in the comments what you think about Jan's campaign, his chances, and what he's proposing. Maybe you agree with something. Maybe you're skeptical of other things. I'm looking forward. I'm always reading the comments, and maybe, Jan, if you have time, I'll ask you to come in the comments, and maybe if you like some of them, you can answer them as well to speak with the chess audience.
Of course, always. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks again, guys. See you in the next one. Bye-bye.